Hey everybody, welcome back to Thoughtfully Critical. I'm Chris. It's good to see you again. I'm excited. We'll be talking about one of my favorite topics in the entire world, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery, or pipelines as they're often called. And we're going to get like somewhat nerdy. There will be some nerdyism in here, but I'm going to try to avoid going so deep that those that aren't technologists don't understand what I'm talking about. So we're going to first talk about what these things are. Then we'll talk about how you can start incorporating them into your career, along with 4 tips that I have on how to get started today. And in the future, expect to see more pipeline-specific content on my YouTube channel, where I'm going to start teaching this stuff. We're going to build pipelines, and I'll show you all of my tricks. If that sounds cool, stick around, and let's get into the strategic imperative of CI/CD. Imagine you work for a 8-bit unicorn plushie factory. I don't know. That's what your product is this little unicorn. You and your team build these unicorns. You design them from scratch. You then have to put them all together as disparate teams and get them out the door so that people all around the world can enjoy your hard effort to make these beautiful, cute, squishy little unicorns. So that's the product that we build. It sounds cooler than widgets, I think. The problem that you've run into is that your designers, your engineers, your product owners, and people that kind of develop and manage the product all have their different ideas of what the product should look like. And so you need a system where everyone can iterate on the unicorn creation independently and then merge your changes together so that we get the horn length and size right. We get the color of the mane correct. We get the wings on the unicorn correct. All the components are correct, which means we need continuous integration, which is the first type of pipeline or the first phase of pipelines we're going to talk about. Now, continuous integration, or CI, is the concept of taking a machine and saying that every time someone has an idea to make these unicorns, we're going to test those ideas. So I'm going to, as a designer, go, I want the unicorn horn to be gold colored, and there should only be one horn. And it needs to be in the center of the head, wherever it is. And I want to make sure that every time someone makes a version of a unicorn, that is tested. The continuous integration system is going to accept people's ideas. Oh, engineer, you have a new unicorn. So let me take a look. And then that machine is going to look it over. Is there one horn? Yes. Test passed. I'm going to allow that change to go through. Is it the right length? Is it the right color? Etc. So the CI system is really there to make sure that every time someone has an idea to make the unicorn, we test to make sure that it's the right size, right color, right things are all in place. All those tests are automated. Now, we're also going to make sure that everyone's testing the unicorn in the same place. We have this shared repository where we're building it and putting the parts and pieces together so that we can all see it. I can see what you're working on. You can see what I'm working on. My changes are visible to you and your changes are visible to me. And the same system, the continuous integration system, is testing all of our ideas to make sure that they all work when we combine them together. It's important to do that because we want to find errors early so we don't get like a horn sticking out of the cheek or on the shoulder blade, that we don't get the wrong colors, we don't have no wings or whatever. And we want to make sure that every time we introduce changes, we can test them. Most people in a technology world have some sort of continuous integration system. The next idea is continuous delivery. And this is saying, well, let's not just stop with the integration and testing of our ideas. Let's then take the final product or our release candidate of the unicorn, something that we think looks right, we're pretty happy with this unicorn, and let's put it into a staging environment or a testing environment. And we're going to look over all the requirements and we're going to have other people test it out. And maybe some end users like you and me come in and go, yep, that looks like a darn good unicorn. I like it. We're batching all these changes up and we're potentially going to release them into this environment so that we can do some more tests. Ultimately, someone's going to come through and they're going to look on their list of requirements and make sure it meets the specifications and the features that we wanted are there and the colors are right and all of that jazz to manually approve the unicorn before it goes off to the customers, before it goes off to the production environment. I'll be honest, most people live in this world. They want automation to test the integration of the ideas, and they want automation to then put the end result of those ideas or the release candidate into a staging environment or a testing environment. And then they say, stop, because I as a person want to make sure I'm happy with all these other people's work before I let it go to my customers. So this is a very common thing to have for most folks. And again, it's continuous delivery or CD, not to be confused with the other CD, continuous deployment. And this is saying, well, why do we need a person to manually approve it? If we have enough automation in place, if we work with building unicorns long enough, we kind of know what it should look like. We can automatically build them, we can automatically test them, and hey, we can automatically ship them to the customer. There's some concerns here for a lot of folks, like how do we know if we actually shipped a good unicorn or a bad unicorn? Maybe we accidentally shipped an evil unicorn bent on world destruction. And so in most maturity models, you're going to see this because not only do we know how to test it as it's going out the door, but we also know how to test it once the customer has their hands on the product or the unicorn to make sure it's not trying to take over the world or cause havoc or it's the wrong color or whatever. So we need the maturity to say, what should it look like after it's been deployed? And how do we make sure that if it's not looking the right way, that we can give them the old version of unicorn back? We can swap it back out or roll back to a better version. So this is basically the same thing as continuous delivery, except we're automatically then deploying this to production or selling it to the customer in case of our cute little unicorn right here. And you can see it has a version number because it's automatically being just shipped directly to the customer. All right, with that example aside, let's dive into like what's underneath all of that. And I think these core principles will drive home kind of 6 pillars of CI/CD. The first is we have to automate all these things. If we're going to be building a lot of unicorns or a lot of products, we need to make sure the way that we build it and test it and make sure that it goes to these environments and gets to the customers is the same every time so that everyone gets that same experience. So we have to automate all these things. It's going to get rid of a lot of errors. It's going to make our process pretty smooth, consistent, and streamlined. The other thing is we want to build our artifacts once, or if we were building a plushy version of the unicorn, we want to build the plushy version, and then we want to make sure it looks right in our development environment. And then we take it and we hand it over to our staging environment. We go, does this still look right? Is this good? Yep, still looks good. We don't need to make any changes. Well, then we pass along that same exact unicorn into production. We're not building a dev version and a stage version and a production version. We build one version, then we kind of conveyor belt it along until it gets to a customer's hands. Third pillar, we need to make sure that we're making frequent commits and small batch changes. We don't want to change the wings and the horn and the color and the size and everything about the unicorn all at once. We just want to change one of those things, put it through the process, make sure it looks good. Once it does, check it off our list, move on to the next thing. Fourth, version control. We want to make sure that when we make changes that there's versions of those changes. So if we change the color of the rainbow on the back of the unicorn, we want to be able to control that. We want to know what we configured that rainbow to look like. We want to know what color specifically were involved. We want to know how we painted it on. All of those things need to be stored in a record called version control. And that's often going to be semantically controlled so that we have a version number, so we know exactly what happened and when. We can pinpoint that, go back to it, etc. Fifth, we need early and continuous testing. That means that every time we make a change, we test it quite a bit. If we wait all the way to the end until we're just about to ship the unicorn, then we probably made a lot of bad changes. We're going to find them really late in the game and then send the unicorn back to a developer that's already moved on? Maybe they worked on the wings last week and they're working on the horn this week. They're not working on wings anymore. You missed your window. You need to test it back when they were working on the wings so they can fix it, so they can move on to the horn or whatever else the unicorn needs. And then last, it's a collaborative and shared environment. The whole point of having CI/CD is everybody can see what's being changed, everyone can see what's being proposed, everyone can see how these things work together, which means when that system breaks for some reason, if someone introduces a breaking change, oh no, we have 8 horns coming out of our unicorn. We stop and say, let's fix that so we can go back to building this new version of our unicorn. We don't wait, we get it fixed. The awesome thing about this, especially if you're an IT operator like myself, is that this is going to form a really awesome bridge between what you're doing today, probably with your hands to configure things and push buttons and make your stuff go burr. You're going to be able to put that in a pipeline so that rather than you having to go on and test things and configure them and deploy them and secure them, etc., you can have your pipeline, your machine automatically test it when we go to integrate these ideas and test them and validate them and push them when we move into our staging environment, and do that again when we move to our production environment. A lot of that's DevOps, and I talked about that in a previous episode. So I recommend doing it not only for that, but also it's a much more pleasant experience when you have a collaborative shared environment with the pipeline at the center of your universe than when you've got a whole bunch of people kind of randomly doing things by hand. You'll find it much more calming, smoother, cleaner, more consistent, and you can focus on making these fun unicorns instead of messing around with all the muck underneath. The big benefit to you as an operator, the reason you want to invest the time and kind of pain to learn something new, is that you're going to multiply your value within the organization and you're going to have a bigger impact. Right now, if you're working with your hands, you can only work one at a time in serial. You can't parallelize any of your work. You can't really scale yourself. This is going to change the game for you. One, you're going to be driving innovation and efficiency because you're going to be making quick, agile pipelines that are able to integrate and test and do the things you're doing manually for everybody. So they're going to like that quite a bit, especially if you can make pipelines that run quickly. A lot of people want a pipeline that runs under 5 minutes. So I know exactly what's happening very quickly. The other thing is then you're transforming all this manual stuff into digital stuff. You're taking what you're doing today in a lot of cases, or a better version of what you're doing today, and you're putting that in code or scripts or automation or YAML files or whatever it is that your pipeline takes the form of. It will start doing that for you, which means all of that nasty work that you're having to deal with today starts to go away. Once you automate it, you can start obviating it. And then last, it's a much more strategic position to be in when you're building pipelines that the company is using to deploy its infrastructure, to configure its applications, to release its software, than when you're just a cog in the machine. Here's 4 different tips that I advise, starting with today, hopefully. Put it on your journal, schedule it in your Todoist, whatever it is. 1, proactively pursue CI/CD education. Work with certifications if that's your jazz, like the AWS DevOps or the Kubernetes has the CKA. They talk a lot about these different principles and let you start putting your hands on these systems. Or use a CI system. GitLab is awesome and has a free version. So does GitHub if you want to use their CI systems. Both have complete free tiers. You don't pay anything. Lots of great tutorials. You can automate to your heart's content. And most everything that you make open source or public or small will cost you absolutely nothing. I like 0. It's a good price point. Second, don't start by trying to automate the universe and look at some huge deployment process and go, there's no way I could put that into a pipeline. You're probably right. When you're starting out, it'll be really, really difficult to do all that. Pick the easy stuff. Learn the CI system with something that you've already worked with before, something that already works. Take these small batches. Heck, make a personal project and just automate really, really simple things. Do you have to deploy a container image every time you build it? Automate that. Do you need to put a file somewhere after you've built it? Automate that. Do you need to build an application every single time a change happens? Automate that. Once you start automating the different pieces and putting them into your pipelines and understanding how these triggers and events and correlations work, it's just going to start becoming more like an aha moment so that you can start automating more and more. When a new project or new idea or just something comes at you, start with infrastructure as code, start with these DevOps practices, bake it into how you're learning CI/CD from the get-go so that you're not doing what you've always done. So instead of writing some monster script that you know you're going to have to maintain forever and no one's ever going to want to have to deal with it, try a pipeline for it. See how that works. Make that pain of learning something you're going to have to do anyways, rather than building something like a script or a bunch of, Rube Goldberg machines that you're going to have to throw away later anyways. And then finally, think about how you're going to impact the business outcomes. What are we trying to do? Why are we all here? We're trying to build awesome unicorns. Well, what metrics do we use to judge that? What's our error rate? How often are we able to ship? How often does the unicorn come out the wrong color and we have to rebuild it? Those are important metrics. And if you're able to impact those because you brought automation and CI/CD to the business, even a small percentage change is going to be huge. I reduced our error rate by 5% or 50%. I've made it so that the time it takes to build something went from 30 minutes to 5 minutes. These changes matter. And if you go in it thinking about how long does it take today, and then how long can you make it take in the future, and that's a better change, you've improved things, success. People are going to applaud. They're going to say, keep going. Let's get more of this. They get addicted to the improvements. So in summary, pursue some education. There's so many free resources out there that you can get today, or you can pay for like a Pluralsight or something, or you can take a test. Find small places to start. Personal projects are fine, little bits and pieces. Maybe you have a mentor or a friend within the company that does this stuff. Buy them coffee or a slice of pizza. Start working with infrastructure as code and DevOps practices from the beginning. Try to break the habits of doing things the way you always have. And then make sure to record your metrics. Think about how the business is trying to change, what outcomes they're going for, and ways that you can measure them and improve them. Much like this little spaceship zooming out into the world of, the unknown out there, the journey to mastering CI/CD and learning pipelines is a continuous adventure. It never ends. There's always going to be new things to learn and absorb and share, and the rewards of that are significant. So I highly recommend going into that world. I'm curious, what are you using to learn? Have you worked with pipelines and CI/CD before? Are you at the CI stage? Are you doing continuous deployment or continuous delivery? What resources would you recommend other folks to use? Share any thoughts that you have on pipelines, automation, and CI/CD. And thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Let's talk again soon. Peace and love.